Hi, welcome to Baseball Weekly. My name is Tyler. Sunday, day after the region tournaments just finished up, so we're sitting here going to recap what all would happen this weekend. Region 16C, that'll be with your in Fergus Falls, Midway, Brandon, Urbank. They finished up in Dent last night. Top two teams there, I believe, were Pelican Rapids. They got first, and Fergus Falls got second. So what happens with these, with the state tournament now is whoever gets first in the region is going to get pretty much the first week bye, I believe. So Pelican over Fergus Falls, and yeah, they'll both be going. I think a couple guys were drafted. I want to say Kowalski was the first pick, so they'll be going. Over here, which we kind of concentrate on more, 14C, High 10, you had your DL, Bluffton, New York Mills, and Bertha were over here. So a bit of some upsets. The week before, I think everyone was waiting for Bertha and Nimrod to face off against each other, and they were hoping that they'd see two aces going at each other, and that ended up being I guess that's ended up happening. Last weekend, Bertha versus Nimrod, Patrick Reaver versus Gunnar Johnson. Bertha ended up winning 4-1, but Gunnar Johnson threw 7 innings, struck out 19. So two guys made contact, but yeah, he only went 7 innings. Bertha ends up winning 4-1. So 19 in 7 innings, but 9-inning ball game. They can't quite finish it out. So Bertha goes on, and that knocked Nimrod down to the losers bracket. And I think coming into the tournament, amateur baseball people around the area, I think everyone said additions they had, and then Nimrod was 20-2 tournament. They lost to Midway and Perm. And yeah, they were on a roll. They were on a roll, and they had Gunnar Johnson, big arm, and they have a couple other extra arms too. So I think they were kind of pegged as the favorites, but Bertha ended up taking them down, and then Bluffton actually took Nimrod down after that. They beat them 5-0, and I think that's the third year in a row that Bluffton's knocked off Nimrod. So Nimrod's a really young team. I'm sure they're going to come back and be just as good next year, but they go down. So the big upset then after the Bertha Nimrod game, Bertha goes and has to play Long Prairie. Long Prairie was playing 500 ball, a little over 500 ball, going into their really young team. From what I understood, they were really close to folding, but they picked up a couple players, and they kept it going. I mean, they got 15, 16 guys. All of them are young. When I say young, I mean 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I think their oldest guy is 26. And it's interesting to watch, in a game of amateur baseball, a handful of 30-year-old guys, and the 30-year-old guys usually can't move around as well as the 22-year-old kid. So Long Prairie was doing what they needed to do. They were stealing bases, and they got hot. Come playoff time, they ended up just going on a streak, and they kept it going. They ended up going into the region tournament. Let's see, it looks like they 10-run Bluffton 12-2 for that first game, and then they play Bertha. And Bertha, you think you see a lot of pitching, so I think they went with Denny, and then they went with the oldest Reaver, and they end up losing 6-7. But yeah, I mean, Long Prairie hit the ball well, but one thing they did really well, they went from first to third on singles, or when they're sitting at second on a ground ball that stays in the infield, they were getting to third. They were just playing the game really hard and being really. It worked out for them. They come on top, and with that game, that was the. And Long Prairie came into this weekend basically sitting out and waiting for Bertha, DL, and Bluffton to kind of take care of business, and they were going to see who they were going to play. So DL took care of Bluffton. They 10-runned him in 8 innings. Bluffton was up 3-1 at one point, but DL came back, and the bats were hot for them the whole tournament. So they kept going. And then the big game, the play-in game to go to state was Bertha, DL. It would be at Bertha. I guess Bertha was a home team. They played it here. They had a bit of a wild game. Bertha got up 2-0 in the first inning, and they got themselves in a little situation at a single, I believe. Guy was rounding second base, got kind of caught up between second and third, and so they're getting a rundown. He gets out. While that happens, there's a guy trying to go from first to second. He gets caught. So they ran themselves out of that inning with a double play, something like it'd be like a 5, 4, 6, 3, something like that. 2 rundowns, 2 outs, and they were out of the inning. So they did get 2, and it was pretty mild ball game until I think the 4th or 5th inning, and I believe it was the 5th. DL came up, 6 runs, a 6-run inning. The Blazers had some tough bounces. The zone got a little tight and walked a few guys in, had a few errors, and ended up being a 6-run inning for DL. And at that point, it was Bertha was playing catch-up, and Bertha scored a few runs here and there. DL did the same thing, but it did get pretty interesting. DL threw Mason Sweegarden, who's a young kid. He was doing very well, mixing speeds, and then around the 7th inning or 6th or 7th inning, started running out of gas. Brought in a reliever. He didn't have much, so they brought in, and they just kind of ran out of arms. So they bring in a guy that hadn't pitched all that much for him the whole year, and so he had a really young pitcher throwing against Bertha Hewitt, who's been around the block, and they put the guys on base. They scored runs off him in the 8th and 9th, but down, it would have been 8-6 coming in the 9th. They score 1 run. They get runners on first and second, or first, I believe. Kid hits could have been a double down the line. Left fielder cuts it off from the fence, and they got first to third. Maybe hesitated a little bit around second. Ends up trying to make that or get to third with 2 outs, and gets thrown out at third to end the game. So the old baseball adage is don't make the third out, especially the last out at third base, and that's exactly what happened. But hats off to DL. They made some big plays when they needed to, and that kid threw some strikes, and they hit the ball. Both teams put the ball on the ground a little bit. They booted the ball a little bit, but it was a pretty good baseball game, and it ended with the guy getting out 90 feet away from home to tie the game. So it was I'm sure Bertha, tough game, but someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. And after that, DL was really hurting. I think they had one arm left, and they go in and play Long Prairie, who's been resting the whole weekend. Long Prairie took that game 10-3. I think DL had something like 12 hits, but Long Prairie is just so athletic, way more athletic than a lot of the other teams in this region, and so they took care of business. And they're the region champs. They were 500, I think, right before that playoff run, and I don't know if they've lost a game since the end of the season. So good for them. New team. Haven't seen a lot of Long Prairie in the region, so it was kind of fun to see. And if you're wondering, what do these regions mean? I pulled up here all the regions. So we got 16 regions in the state. Region 16C was played over in Dent, and you also got A, B, and C. A is the cities teams. B is kind of some bigger metro teams. And then C is just the rural area. So you got 16 regions. In each region, you're going to see almost 12, 16 teams in a region. So for example, Region 16C, Ashby, Brandon, Kensington, and Osakis. That's from the Resorters West. And you had Huntersville, Midway, Red Eye, Wolf Lake, and then Dent, Fergus Falls, Frazee, Pelican, and Vergus. Of course, Frazee was in the high 10, but that's how it usually is. And if you're wondering, are we the northernmost region? We're not. Region 10 is going to have Ada, Bemidji, Crookston, Fertile, Moorhead, Roseau, Thief River, War Road. And then that region also goes down to Litchfield, Sartell, St. Joseph, Clear Lake, Black Duck, Cass Lake, Nevis, and Walker into region. So that region, you're talking all the way up to the Canadian border, all the way down by Clear Lake. So that one's pretty spread out. But those are your northernmost ones, I guess, is that Region 10 region and Region 16C. Of course, our region, you got the High 10, the Lake and Pine South, which is Nimrod, Sabika, Staples, and Verndale. And then the Resorters, Carlos, Clarissa, Urban, Prairie Park, Swanville. So that's how the regions shake out. Now, after this region tournament, what happens is you got one game a weekend pretty much. So if you got, let's see here. If you got first place, like I said, you get a bye that first weekend, you go play the next weekend. It's 1 game a weekend for the first 2 weeks, I believe. Once that third weekend goes, I believe it's like August 30th, 31st, September 1st. That's when the championships are going to happen. You're going to play 1 game a weekend. Come the third week, you got to stay there and hopefully finish up. It's in Jordan and Belle Plaine, 2 amazing ballparks. I know we love the field here and we love Tuffy Stadium. They got quite an establishment down there. All the way down there. As soon as you get south of the interstate, ball fields are all over the place. But so DL Fergus Falls, Urbank, and Long Prairie are going to go down. They'll play 1 game a weekend, and then I guess we'll see what happens, and we'll hopefully keep trying to update you guys as that goes on. Last year, Bluffton, I believe, won a game. I don't think Bertha did. And then, of course, a few years ago, Midway won the whole thing. They won the state tournament, I believe it was 3 years ago now. So hopefully we get to see one of those northern teams do well for themselves and produce. Now, after the region tournament's done, each team gets to draft, I believe, 1 guy. So you're looking at, if I believe it's 1 guy, it might be 2 guys now. But if you're a team from Region 14C, Nimrod's out, Bertha's out, so you could draft Patrick Reaver, you could draft Gunnar Johnson, and you could be sitting pretty good. So I think that's what you're going to see happen is DL and Long Prairie, they're both probably going to pick up aces, and hopefully they make a pretty strong run. With 1 game a weekend, you can rely on 1 ace and get yourself to that third weekend, and then hopefully you're sitting well. So yeah, that's how the amateurs shook out. Teams left in our area, they're going to keep playing ball. Everyone else going to go golfing. But that's how that shook out. The Legion tournament, we talked about how Alexandria was going to have Lakeville North. Pretty tough draw. We thought it was a pretty tough draw coming into the tournament. It was much tougher than we even thought. Lakeville North beat them 13-4. And if you've never seen Alexandria play, that must have been a pretty interesting game because Alexandria really good pitching, solid all around at every position, and Lakeville beat them up pretty bad. But not to hang your heads, Alexandria, Lakeville kept going. They actually won the Minnesota State tournament, so they're going to go and play in that Central Plains, I believe North Central Plains Regional, something like that. And I think it's hosted in Fargo this year. So if you're wondering, when you see these Little League World Series on TV or that stuff, that's usually how it goes. You win your state tournament, then you win your region, then you're going down there. So they're going to have to win their region to end up going to that National Legion tournament. And, we'll see what happens. A few years ago, Eden Prairie's been down there. There's been a few teams from Minnesota that's done really well. And it's, Legion keeps getting bigger and bigger. I believe you can watch the national tournament on ESPN3 nowadays. So, you can... Legion's getting bigger, and hopefully Lakeville North goes down there and plays pretty good and represents Minnesota well. But yeah, so we're finished up with region baseball, finished up with Legion baseball. Yeah, day here, and it's Sunday, early Sunday in August, and we got our million, I believe is what the farmers call it. So we finally got that out of the way. But yeah, we're sitting at a ball field that we played in for a whole other 9 months, which is an interesting feeling. It's like being at a ghost town, I guess. But anyways, thanks for checking us out, and we'll see you next week.